Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Riding Shotgun with Flying V. We are yet again not driving this time, but we have been driving around here in Wyoming.
In the Great White North.
Doing some late-season goose hunting here. We showed up, it was 52 degrees.
And muddy.
And it felt like we should be going spring turkey hunting.
Right.
And then today, it was -3.
Yeah, it was a hell of a drop.
So we've had a big adjustment here, but it's been going great. I mean, shit, we've had some pretty good hunt. Today was really, really good.
Yeah, it was significantly better today than yesterday.
Must have been the scout.
Significant.
Not to be a numbers guy, but it was actually 5 times better.
Well, we ran traffic twice.
It was 5 times better than yesterday.
Today we have Randy Southard here with us. He's been on this trip with us, and I did write up a little introduction for Randy because the rap sheet is long.
I can't
So,
wait to hear this.
It's very positive and political.
You put some real thought into it though, so I want to hear it.
Only kind of. I mean, so I want to make the introduction to you. We've known each other for a very long time. And so here we go. Colonel Randy Southard, the United States Army.
Retired.
You served 30 years,
Yes.
including multiple deployments overseas. In addition to your career as a military man, you were a sheriff's deputy in northeast Wisconsin, which is where and when I met you.
Correct.
You're a canine handler, a field trainer, SWAT team member, right? You've dedicated your life to not only serve this country, but serve your community. Really impressive. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a goose hunter, you're a Missouri River historical tour guide, which I'm really looking forward to going on one of these tours with you this summer. You're a craft beer enthusiast, and you are my goose hunting mentor, which holds pretty high regard. I hold that in pretty high regard. Now retired from both the military and the sheriff's department, you recently moved to Montana with your wife Beth, and you basically hunt every day. Goose
much.
hunt,
Yes.
rain or shine.
No matter what.
We're pumped to have you here, buddy, and we're pumped that you're on this trip. And it's been, gosh, I think the last time you and I hunted prior to this trip, although we've talked back and forth a bunch, and there was some downtime in there when you were overseas. I was in Idaho, and there was some disconnect there. But I think the last year we hunted was in 2000, like Thanksgiving in 2000. It would be 2009.
Okay.
And we hunted a soybean field outside of Appleton and ran traffic, and it was 3 birds then.
Yes.
When we were there, so we ended up shooting 6, and I have that picture, and we'll throw it up on the YouTube for all you guys. But it's been a long time since we've been able to link up.
Too long.
Yes, very, very much so. And part of that's on me. We just get tied up and head down, and we're just going and traveling, and now we're working on ranches and doing other things. Our time is kind of split between fun hunting and work hunting. So
Correct.
It's been really fun to have you. I'm pumped that you were able to actually make it on this trip. And it was kind of happenstance a little bit because, I mean, we had this trip planned, and we didn't have anybody coming with us. We had one guy that was thinking about it, and he ended up not making it. And then Brady's like, I don't know who to bring. And then that day where that guy backed out was the day you're like, what do you think about going down there? Is it worth going down there? At just one guy, is it worth going down there to freelance? And we were able to make this trip happen.
Yes. Glad you guys let me come.
Well, I mean, who doesn't want to hunt with a legend?
No legend here.
I mean, we got to see it today. I mean, those birds, they'd come over the top and you'd turn them.
They like that call that you had.
They like that.
What call was that?
I was running traffic.
Just tuned higher?
Yeah, tuned higher. Cocobolo and acrylic, and then I was running a polycarbonate one.
Yeah, I saw you running that poly one for a little bit.
Yeah.
They like that.
They like polycarbonate for me, my voice inflection out of it. So
Yeah, it works really well.
yeah.
So I met Randy way back, 2004, and it, there's a long story leading in, but my dad was the store manager at a brand new store, Sportsman's Warehouse in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I worked there, and I had already had this like infatuation of goose calling, not necessarily goose hunting, because I'd been goose hunting, and the only time I ever saw it work was when a guy knew how to call, and it was one time. And I was just like, man, there's no point in even going if you don't know how to call. So I needed to learn how to call, and I bought a Big River Flock Talk off the wall, which is a wood call with a brass band, cheap call off the wall. Got a Honker Talk DVD and just started practicing on my own, right? And there was a guy in the store that worked at the gun counter with me who was kind of, a self-proclaimed local legend. His name was Mike Williams. We called him the Mouth. Because
Mouth of the South.
Mouth of the South. He's from the South, right? Or no, he was from Green Bay.
He's from Green Bay.
Yeah, like born and bred.
He's born and bred Green Bay boy.
Yeah, and he was a duck guy though, but he was a hell of a duck caller. I mean, he could call ducks. And
Yes.
He cared about ducks a lot. And I really didn't have that passion for duck hunting. I wanted to learn the goose calling thing, but he knew the people, right? He knew all the local people. I was new to Green Bay, and he had a bunch of buddies. And one day, him and I would spend hours at that call counter.
Yeah.
And we'd just be ripping on these calls, and I'd be like, wow, $150 call. I mean, I can blow them in here, but I'm going to go home with my Flock Talk and practice. And
by the way, quick side note, isn't it fascinating that today a top shelf call is still $150?
Yeah.
And it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it is.
It's ridiculous. Call makers are behind the curve, if you're listening. You're the only thing in this country that has no inflation in 20 years.
Yeah. There's some grounds is charging more. I mean, some guys are charging a little bit more, but still
they're
not
still
much.
sub 200 for the most part. I mean, like,
even some of the collector calls out there are sub 200.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Anyway, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you said $150, I was like, man, it's so crazy that it was that way then, and it's still the same damn thing today.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I guess
it's
they
dumb.
Just haven't risen their prices yet.
It's dumb.
Yeah. So Mike Williams invited me to come on a goose hunt with his buddy Chuck, who also worked there, and then their buddy Randy, who I hadn't really met. We had met in passing.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on a cornfield hunt, and I was excited. I'm like, okay, this is going to be cool. I'm going to go hunting with some goose hunters, local goose hunters, guys who, in my eyes, take it very seriously. And I'm going with Mike, so I have a connection. And we go out there, and I'll never forget. I mean, we were running. It was Randy's spread, Randy's trailer, Randy's field, Randy's everything, and he invited Chuck and Mike, and then, somehow I got into the fold. I don't know the conversation that was had on the back end.
I'm going to bring this kid. Listen, we don't need any snot-nosed high school bastards running around here.
Randy was in the position, I think, if I think about it now, it seemed like you were looking for guys to hunt with.
Yeah.
If you go hunting, you're looking for guys to hunt with.
Yeah.
And so we went on this hunt, and we were using – this was your old flock. This would have been 2004. We were using your original honker or original hardcore honker spread.
Okay.
Right? So the original Corey Hamrick spread.
Yep.
And I remember the decoys were really gray, and they had flocked heads, and they looked really, really good. And you set this big spread, decent-sized spread from what I saw, because, I had 3 shells that I picked up from the neighboring garage sale. So we set out all these decoys, laid in these layup lines, and you called, and the geese come in, you pop up, shoot. It was just like automatic.
Holy shit!
It was like automatic. I'm like, there is really something to this. Because this never happens when I go with my friends or my friends' parents or my dad. And it just started to kind of snowball from there because I had this like infatuation with calling. And then I went hunting with him, and he was a hell of a caller, and he knew the skills for hunting, but I really was just like, maybe I can figure out the hunting, maybe not, but I need to learn how to call. And then we just started doing a little bit more hunting together.
Yeah.
That first year, we hunted a handful of times more, and then I contacted him in the off season. He started coming into the store a little bit and started working on the calling with me, and you hooked me up with Saunders.
Yep.
And Saunders got me my very first call that wasn't a call off the wall. I was blowing this flock talk. I finally made my first cluck, and it like clicked. I remember calling Randy. I'm like, I did it. He's like, cool, that's step one. I'm like, okay, well, that one took 6 months, so let's move on to step two.
Let's
See
get to
you at
the,
Thanksgiving.
let's get to the moan now.
And we just started working back and forth, and I got a Saunders reload that he, hand dremeled the year and some geese on it and all that stuff, and you guys gave it to me as a gift for free. I'm like, what do I owe you? I can't really afford it. It's like $65, and you're like, oh, he's just going to give it to you. It was like the first thing that I had ever gotten from the industry for free was that call. And it meant something, right? Like back then, you get stuff for free, like it meant something. You knew somebody or they saw something in you. It wasn't like it is today where there's all this, big budgets being put out for seeding to kind of, pimp your gear. It was like a real thing. If you got it for free, you had to know somebody or they saw something in you.
Do you still have that call?
Still have that call, of course, yeah. I've only sold one call. Out of all my calls, I've only ever sold one, and I regret it. It was a wood traffic. It wasn't Gen 1. It was a Gen 2 wood traffic that Jackson made in Idaho, and I had gotten one off the press, didn't have any engraving in it or anything. It was before he sent them off to Bill.
Yeah.
And like a dumbass, I was, for whatever reason, wanting to get a Fox Pro coyote call, and I couldn't afford one, but I wanted to go coyote hunting, and I had this call, and Mike Callion, who also lived in Idaho when I lived there, he lived in the same town that I did, he had one. He's like, listen, dude, I'll trade you the traffic for the Fox Pro. And I'm like, oh, why does it have to be that one? How about any of these other ones? He's like, I just want the traffic, man. And so I did it, and I regret it, and I give him shit about it when I see him. I talk to him on the phone. He now works for Dave Smith Decoys, and so we talk back and forth. But, yeah, Randy took me under his wing, and it goes way deeper and beyond that. But it's cool for me to be on the path that we're on today, looking back at where I was then, knowing that I needed a jump start, and you were the one that gave it to me.
It's cool to look back. It sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is.
So, yeah, I was pumped he's here. I'm pumped he's here right now.
Me too. I've heard about this infamous Randy for 10 years, and to be honest, for a long time, I was starting to think you were a bit of a mythological creature.
This dude doesn't exist.
Yeah. And then there would be times Matt's like, hey, Randy's out east. He's out in Montana hunting. And I'm like, well, let's go hunt with him. I don't know if it's going to line up. Or I'm like, It's like when you're in high school and your buddies are like, they got a hot girlfriend, right? 4 or 5 of them. Then there's like the one nerd. He's like, I got a smoke show of a girlfriend. You're like, come on now. Yeah, she goes to a different school. That's why you never met her. But, like, she's super hot.
Yeah.
You're like, really? You going to bring her to prom? She's actually doing a supermodel gig that weekend.
Yeah.
So, sorry you won't get to meet her. I'm like, oh, okay, you got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I'm like, man, I've heard a lot about Randy. Like, I want to hunt with Randy. So I, too, am very excited that you're here because it's finally happening.
Yep. And we made the comment, we had a tough day yesterday, but you and I have been scouting. We looked around. We were able to get on a ranch that is big enough to be able to withstand our entire trip, and there's enough birds here. And we kind of took your lead, your traffic-oriented lead on just like, let's traffic hunt these birds for 3 days in a row, and then we'll never wear them out. It was what we always did.
Always did, yes.
Why traffic hunting? I mean, We tend to push towards the feeds mostly.
Yeah. I think what I like about the traffic hunting idea is if you're hunting a limited number of birds, don't pound them on the X all the time. Get in between them. That will then keep them in the area longer because you're not shooting them off of their feed all the time. You're not shooting into big groups. Just like you guys managing your ducks, you know, on your ranch. You're smartly thinking about the pressure that you're putting on those guys so that you keep them there. Because if you piss pound them all the time where they want to be, you're going to push them out. I don't think hunters today think about pressure as much as they should and how much pressure pushes an animal around. And to me, traffic hunting is just so much more rewarding. Look at the feeling.
It takes more skill.
It takes more skill. I think it makes you a better hunter because you have to figure it out. Okay, what's working today? Do I need a flag? How am I calling? You know, and you guys kind of saw me today, not that it was the difference, but I changed how I called today. How I didn't call like I was a honker.
No.
You know, I called like I was a lesser.
Yeah.
You know, and on the one go, it really worked.
I mean, I would say if handful of goes, it really worked.
Yeah. And it's so rewarding to run. Look at how pumped you felt today.
Oh, yeah.
You know, especially on the last go. We had 4 birds to go. Here comes a pair. Comes in, lands, and I whispered to Brady, let him go. Let him go. Leave those 2 on the ground. And then another pair came back, and I'm like, there's our 4. You know, you call a shot, we're done.
We're done.
Yep.
That was great too.
That was so fun.
Yeah, it was really fun to. Part of the feeling that we had today, in my opinion, was one, we got beat up yesterday.
Yep, we got. You know, we had a plan, and like Mike Tyson always said, you always have a plan until you get punched in the mouth. You know, and we got punched in the mouth yesterday.
We did. We had one group burn us right as we were parking the trucks, and then we had some high flyers yesterday, and then I mean, we worked birds.
Yep.
We just could not finish them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then the mob stopped short of us between us and the roost.
Yep.
And that was it.
Quarter mile, half mile away, and they just all went there.
Yeah.
Faucet turned off.
All the way off. We gave it till 2 o'clock and nothing. So we shot 3 birds yesterday. But today,
3 trophy birds, though.
3 trophy birds. One of them with the TSS that landed short.
Yeah, Matt Turkey shot him at 90. That was awesome. Graveyard dead too.
And there was a couple trophy barn mallards.
Oh yeah, there was a couple pigeons that went ahead and took one for the team.
Yep.
It's not our fault they flew over us during a lull.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We fed them some 10 bore, and
Yep.
what I'll tell you is a 10 gauge is very effective on a pigeon. Like all the way, it gets them.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And so today, because we had such a crazy temperature drop, you know,
And snow.
from 50 to -3 in the course of 2 days, and new snow. There was no snow over there last night. There was snow there today.
Yep.
So we got to run a big sleeper spread, have a really big imprint on the field, and it's all white. And, I mean, it looked great.
It sure did.
And we decided instead of go to the corn, because late in the season when it gets really cold, they tend to not go to the corn first thing in the morning. They go to grass. So we picked the only grass field that we could find, for the most part, that was close to where they short-stopped us, and just went with it. One thing that you did, though, or you brought up yesterday, that was a really good idea and paid huge dividends today, was to identify where we want to hunt tomorrow and set the blind yesterday before the snow.
Yeah, we were sitting in the blind yesterday talking about the weather, and it's like they're going to get 2 to 4 inches. It's just like, man, if it's all white, I was thinking, because you guys are talking about the sleeper spread and how you get so much visibility in the field. I'm like, man, this is going to be a bitch to hide. And I was just thinking, like, well, why don't we should just go set the blind out and let it get snowed on.
Of course.
Actually worked out great because there's a little berm behind the blind, and it's windy here. And it actually kind of drifted around the blind as well. It actually did a better job than
we could have
done, or that I would have even hoped we would have shown up to. But it's kind of a a little snow igloo buried in there right now, and
It was great.
it worked great. I mean, we had one group, maybe 2 groups today, that when they came down the side, they saw down the line and saw us and buggered out. But for the most part, I mean, those geese just spun right over and got down in the wind and just.
Yeah, peeling pairs, and we did while you were out of the blind. Randy and I did land a group of like 70.
Yeah.
Which was you'd have loved that. I mean,
They landed long. I was like, this is so he landed them, and then there was like a couple. I'm like, I wonder what they're gonna do, if they're gonna walk these out or shoot. And he got up and killed 2 of them.
Yeah,
That was cool.
yeah, boom, boom, and but for the most part, I mean, just like any traffic hunting, you're not going to pull the megawads. You're
Nope.
not going to pull them.
No, you're not. On average, you're not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, we've talked over the last couple of days, Randy, about how generally we try to avoid lessers, right?
Yep.
So they kind of kick our ass, and you love them. One thing I did love about today, and I love this about a lesser, and honkers will do it every now and then, but lessers do it more, is they're coming in, and as a shot caller, I'm watching and trying to gauge distance, both distance out but distance up, right? Triangulating where you're going to call the shot and how they're going to do it. Those jokers, they'd get in the wind, they're coming in high, and they'd stop and then just take the elevator.
Yep.
Straight down.
They're so fun to watch.
That's so cool.
so fun to
And
watch.
big geese generally don't do that, right?
Yeah.
They're going to come in and crawl down
Yeah.
and get down, and they're going to get right over the deck, and then you're going to rip on the call and pull them across the field and get them in the decoys. But those little geese today, they'd come in high and then just straight down.
Love it.
I can't wait to see Dane's footage of it, because he had a big lens, but he was, 400 yards away from us.
yeah, I'm not sure. It's pretty far.
It's long ways, but I think the perspective that he had from the left, it'll be really cool being able to watch these geese and then just.
Yeah, they dump their ass and just fall.
Oh
out of the
man,
sky.
that was cool to
Yeah.
watch today.
Yeah.
I like that.
Lessers are awesome.
I mean it. Yeah.
They punch you in the mouth a lot, but God, when they do it,
Oh yeah.
they do it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Led
Well,
loves them too.
yeah, he does love them, and we didn't see a lot of big geese today.
No, we did not see a lot of big
Mm-mm.
honkers.
I'm thinking
Way
that-
less than yesterday.
Well, I think what happened is we did see some big geese today, but I think those lessers flew, and we were able to bang out before the big geese flew.
Yeah, the big
Yeah.
geese were not off the water yet.
I think I agree.
They're lazy.
They're
Yeah.
big and lazy, and they're going to go let the lessers figure out where they're going to be, and they're going to pick somewhere else.
Yeah. Yep.
They're
That's-
going to go land with some cattle somewhere. Or
If you wanted to
something.
hang out with 10,000 loud midgets, you'd be
Yeah.
like, I think I'm going to scoot over here.
Yeah, I think those bigger geese didn't even fly yet.
Yeah, I could have been. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the time of day. So what we left at what time? 2:30 or 1:30? We left at 1:30.
To get out of the field
to get out
today.
of the field.
Yeah.
Oh, we were out of the field before that, because when Ryan and I left, when we had already dropped the trailer and done everything, it said that we were going to be here by like 1:50. So we were out of there
Yeah.
probably by 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was figuring that those geese, thinking big geese in my mind, he said they were going to start flying at 11, which was spot on. I was thinking big geese, and I was like, I think they're going to fly at 1 or 2
Yeah, you
o'clock.
s-
It was like
yeah.
right at that peak of temperature. The snow is going to stop. The wind's going to die a little bit, and that's when they're going to fly. And we were out of there before that even happened.
Which is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, so we decided we're just going to hunt that again
Same
tomorrow.
field.
Same
Well,
field.
it's a good hide. We shot 15 geese because there's 3 of us shooting. I mean, we did not shoot in, other than that big flock you guys landed, and there was one that had 15 or so that we shot some out of. Other than that, we were shooting singles and pairs and 4-pack. Like,
Exactly.
we did not shoot into a bunch of geese. I mean, some geese flew over us, and we called at them, and they kept going. But, like, we didn't bugger up any geese by doing that.
No.
So that was, when we were talking about it, my thought process, I was standing there looking at the blind that snow drifted in, and I'm like, man, it's going to be hard to duplicate that wherever we go.
Mm-hmm. We just
'Cause-
have to find a better hide, a better edge hide.
Of
But
course.
we know exactly what those birds are doing, and when they get over the fields where they're headed to, I mean, it's pretty hard to hide over there. We
Yep.
dissected it for
we
2 hours.
spent hours looking at hides and how to do it, and kept going back to eat better hide, the grass, the cold, the snow, because all 3 of us have been our asses burnt on cold snow and corn.
Yep.
It's
First
just-
thing in the morning, for
Yep.
sure. Morning hunts in the corn.
Out west here, just something about that.
We see so many times out west here where those geese, once they leave the roost, they don't go back if it's cold, right? They just kind of trade around in different fields. And I am convinced they like to go to grass or a pasture in the morning. To your point, peak time of day, temp comes up a little bit, and then they will go to seed crop or beets or whatever.
Small grain, yep.
I mean, you think about it, man. Those corn kernels this morning, I couldn't have gotten those suckers out with my boots. How's a goose going to get them out
If you
with
could
this?
find them with this much snow on them.
Yeah, even if you dug around, though, like a goose, they're going to be frozen into the ground. And that ground was wet, moist yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, that corn is going to be frozen in there even harder than normal. I think we made – well, I know we did. We made the right call by going to the grass field.
Yep.
That's not something most people would do, though. That's a
No.
pretty veteran move.
Yeah, most guys, if you said, hey, it's cold and it's snowing, what are you going to? And they're going to say corn,
Mm-hmm.
and after you get your ass beat by going to corn and not killing anything, and you're like, why are they in that alfalfa field over there?
Well, and Matt and I, for years, we'd do it, and we're like, all right, I don't think it works well in the beets or the corn or whatever first thing in the morning. And then somehow we'd get amnesia. We go hunting again. We see them at 3 in the afternoon. There's 10,000 of them. It's like, we're going to smash them in the morning. And we're sitting there in the morning looking at each other like, I kind of feel stupid because we knew this was going to happen, and we still did it.
Which is why we pushed back yesterday so hard on that corn, even though it was more in the flight line and perceivably, when there was no snow, better hide on that hill on the fence line. But, I mean, we're both just like, I don't know, man. Get your ass kicked in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we probably would have. That's really cool.
Tough to say. Yeah, I just know that it worked well today. And, again, going back to that hide, the fact that it snowed a few inches and that wind drifted all around the A-frame, I mean, I could not have been more stoked when we showed up today and saw that. I was
it looked
like,
so
okay, game
good.
over.
Yeah, it looked great.
And there's still, it's not necessarily hammering snow now, but there's still enough wind out there, and down there is still enough wind that I can promise you when we go back tomorrow, 90% of our tracks and everything are going to be drifted. It's going to look just like it did this morning.
Yep.
It's still cold. It's not going to melt. And I think we're going to have basically deja vu tomorrow.
I think so.
I think it's going to run her back very similar.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
Randy's going to give them the old sweet sound, and they're just going to go.
You asked a really good question today, and Randy had a great answer about calling, right?
Yeah, so I was excited to have Randy come out because I've heard about his calling, and I've heard all this stuff for a decade now. And we were in the blind, and some geese Randy would call out, some geese Matt would call out. There was like 3 flocks where you were calling your ass off, and Randy wasn't calling at all, like 0%. So I was just curious. I'm like, hey, man, just walk me through, like, tell me why you're not even playing second fiddle or anything. You were doing nothing for a few flocks. And why is that?
And as we discussed, one, I think when 2 different callers are just giving her craziness, noise, it just, to me, to my ear, doesn't mean it's right, kind of thinks it's not right, doesn't sound right. But more importantly, it doesn't let you read birds.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I can't tell if the 2 on the back that just turned, did they turn because of what Matt was doing, or did they turn what I was doing?
Yeah.
And you can't, and it's like, okay, we turned birds, but what was it? And what I mean by that then is as those birds turn, I like to work them to the ground with what I turned them with in general.
Sure.
So I don't know if I keep going to what I'm doing, and then, or does Matt keep going to what he was doing? And if he picks up the volume and I pick it up, what's right?
Now you could blow them out.
Now you can blow them out.
Yeah.
So I just, and I'm not against 2 guys calling at all. I just think if you're running traffic and you're really trying to make noise, it's harder to read the birds when 2 guys are giving her.
So this brings me back to something we chatted about yesterday. We were talking about hunting lessers and you were saying that you've had some really phenomenal lesser hunts where you've done little to no calling.
Yeah.
And I brought up, I'm like, man, that's counterintuitive to what every lesser hunter that you ever see does. You know, most lesser hunts, I feel like they put, 8 people in the blind. Everybody's got a little tiny lesser call. And as soon as they see geese, the whole fucking thing lights up. And it's just like lights and sirens and call the SWAT team, call everybody. Like everybody's just like, la, 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 ripping as
Crazy.
fast and hard as they can. And then they get a big spin going. And we've been in these situations too. And then everybody's like, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. And it's just like calling and calling and calling and calling. Blood's coming out of your ears and you're dying and just calling and calling and calling and calling. And then they do it. But you have said you've had good experience with doing the exact opposite.
And it's hard to say why.
Maybe that's why, is because they're not getting the same thing they've had their ass beat on every other time.
Yeah. I mean, my best lesser hunts with success are over 60 Dave lessers and a hell of a great hide and no calling.
That's so cool.
Just, it's hard to explain why. And I go back, I learned a ton from Bill Saunders because he, to me, is the lesser killer of lesser killers. And when he picks up a call and you listen to how his yappy sound is a lesser, you're like, holy shit. He, to me, is the best of them all. And he doesn't hunt over big spreads to kill lessers, but man, can he call. Or Mike Callion. Mike Callion, you listen to Mike, he's one of the best callers too, you'll hear. He's phenomenal on a call, especially spec. Get him gone on a spec call. But I'm not nowhere near at the level of a Saunders blowing lessers. I'm not even in that league. I don't know. I think you got to hide good decoys, and I can't run 10 dozen, 20 dozen, 30 dozen. I run 60 because I'm by myself so much.
Yeah.
And
And I think that part of it's cool too. It's counterintuitive because going back, most lesser hunts you see on the internet or social media, wherever, it's lots of calling, loud calling, and a shit pile of decoys.
Yes.
Like all of them.
Like
80 of your buddies get together to hunt, everybody bring your rig.
Yeah.
We're running the whole damn thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's just further proof that one thing I love about hunting and waterfowl hunting in particular is I think it's a sport and let's call it a discipline, whatever we want to call it, that I don't think you can ever fully master.
I agree.
Which is what I like about it. Because I would hate to do something for 5, 6, 8, 10 years and then all of a sudden be like, well, figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, there's really nothing I don't know. I would get bored with that. The truth is I'd probably quit.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'd move on to something else because I like to constantly learn and think. And so I think it's just really cool to hear that. Yesterday you surprised me with that. And then, hearing about the decoy spreads and everything, I'm like, man, it just further proof that what you see on the internet is not always the only way or reality, right?
Yes.
But a lot of people, they watch people they look up to, and I'm not saying they're doing it wrong either by calling a bunch and running big spreads. They're not. Obviously, they shoot the piss out of them.
Yep.
I'm saying it's really cool that, the old adage of there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Fact.
Very
That's a
much
fact.
so.
Yep.
Yeah, and we've tried that before, but we just never have the patience to let it not work.
Lessers are a patience game,
over and
big
over
time.
and
Little geese are. And I learned that from Brad, hunting with Brad Cochran. You hunt with him and you hunt cacklers, and same thing I learned from my buddy Kevin McMahon. Those guys have the patience of an angel. They'll let them sort of circle and circle and circle, and like 20 times. You're like, oh my God, dude, I'm dying here. And then all of a sudden you see that one bird go, whoa, 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 whoa. And you'll see the smile on Brad's face. He's like, here we go, boys. It's going to happen. And it's just patience. It's huge patience.
And you have to hide so well if they're going to spin you even 4 times.
Yeah.
Much less 15 times.
Any bird, really. I mean,
you have to be able to hide. You have to be able to 100% disappear and be a sniper in that field, because if you don't, they will, over the course of those 20 spins, see you, and bug off.
They're going to see something.
They're going to see something they don't like. You have to pay so close attention to the detail of that to hunt them with small spreads, small realistic spreads, and light calling.
Yep.
But gosh, did they finish perfect, hey? when you do it that way, they finish really, really well, just like they finish into live birds.
You know what else has been going through my head these last 2 days, listening to Randy, as it pertains to you and I?
What's that?
You know, for first 5-6 years we hunted together, we only ran the DSD lessers, right? And then this year we've had conversations like, maybe we should go back to running lessers again, because I love the honkers. They're fine. From a utility standpoint, I love the lesser because we can run more, less space, yada, yada, yada. I like the decoys a lot too, right?
Mm-hmm.
They look good. But I was thinking about it today, and not so much where we live, but other areas we hunt. So many of our hunts, it's like half and half or a majority lessers in these flocks.
And this is new for us.
And it's over the last 5 years. It's like, I remember 5 or 6 years ago, we'd see lessers and we're like, holy shit, there's lessers in with them. And then the next year, it's like, wow, there's a bunch of lessers here. And then by the third year, we'd see feeds. I mean, remember on our favorite scouting loop in the world, I remember on one of those fields drive by, I'm like, there's like 20,000 in here. Like, you'd pull over and roll the window and the truck down. You couldn't even hear yourself think. I mean, there's so many of them. But as it pertains to us, it makes me want to go to the lesser spread more, because we know we can kill honkers over them. We've done it for a long time.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we ran lesser spreads, we would, A, naturally run more decoys, which, admittedly, Randy, I love. But but B, it'd be more realistic for when we do have those mixed flocks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a lot that we can take away from Randy, and these last 2 days have, I've retained a lot of the information that you've taught me. And listen, he was hard ass. Like, you either do it my way and I don't know if this is what he would say. I don't know if it's the right way, but this is the way I do it. And here's the deal. If you want to hunt with me, you're going to do it my way.
Get in or get out.
Right? And I retained a lot of information, right? And there's a lot of scenarios that we went through. But it's different birds, different crops, different things, right? In Wisconsin it was.
Yes.
And so there was gaps in my knowledge base, and when I moved out west, that's when I had to start learning and filling in myself. I think that the lesser is a great decoy, and I think the birds work softer. They land softer into them. They don't freak out around them. I do really like that about the lesser decoy. I also think the hiding is really important. So right about this time that you're talking about, when we started seeing more lessers, is also right around the time when we decided we're not hunting out of layup lines ever again.
Totally.
And when that happens, now we're trying to get lessers to the edge of the field, which they absolutely hate. Like, they don't like that. And B, we can't disappear in that.
Totally.
So those spins, like, we can't disappear in that unless we put more effort, more time, and energy into the hide and actually build big tumbleweed hides every single time we go.
And I think, too, in adding tops to your frames could help.
Yeah.
It's not foolproof, but I explained the idea I have. It's not my idea. It's my friend Tim's gave me the idea with building tops for your frames with dowel rods and some fencing, plastic fencing, and then you zip tie your weeds or whatever your hide is you're brushing up your hide with. It covers those gaps between guys. It's kind of like running in a pit. I think that'll help you with your lessers. Cover up that line, that gap there.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that the majority of the reason that we haven't killed lessers when we've tried is because of the hide. Because they are going to spin, and they make big spins.
Yeah.
They will make big. Now, today they didn't, but it was also a 50-degree temperature drop and really good wind and fresh blanket of snow, and we were running a good footprint in an area that I don't think they've been really hunted in very much. So like we had a lot working for us today, but in general, when we see them, they're flying in flocks. You get them, and we go ahead and just start ripping that call, and they ball up. Well, now once they ball up, as soon as you let go, they leave. Once you got them committed with the heavy calling.
Yeah, I feel like second they ball, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So really, really interesting. But there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that hunting with Randy the last couple of days has like re-sparked my memory of like, oh yeah, I remember that now. But I kind of wrote that off a while back when I tried it a few times and it didn't work. But there's so many variables for these ideas and situations that you have to keep in mind and pull that trick out when the variables present themselves.
Well, here's what I know. If the trend continues that we're seeing now, we are only going to see more and more and more lessers.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's a fulcrum point to that, and it drops down, and we see more big. I don't know. But what I do know is over the past 6 years, every single year there's been more lessers than there was a year before. We still have the big geese.
Yes.
It isn't that we're replacing one with another.
No.
It's just that there's more lessers, so the percentages are skewed. There's still a pile of big geese here.
Yes.
You can go here out in the west and kill big geese every hunt.
Yeah.
However, there's more and more lessers, and they've just beat our ass for so long. I want to kill them. That's why I was so happy today. I told you.
You had a big shit-eating grin on your face.
I'm so happy, and you're like, I love lessers. And I said, I love to see 15 dead lessers because that's 15 less that we have to deal with.
Well, you guys heard me say yesterday, if you only said, Randy, you can hunt with one spread, and you could hunt from the west coast to the east coast, and I said I would have 60 DSD lessers. That's what I would have.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, if that was the only decoy I could own, that's what I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's such a versatile decoy. Size, colors, right, of course. Body postures are, hell, it's Dave, you know. Mm-hmm. We all know that. It's just the most versatile decoy.
You feel like you could kill any subspecies of Canada goose with a lesser spread?
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Talked to Brad once, shooting lessers over there, Tavs, Aleutians, lessers, honkers, cacklers. I mean, there's 6 subspecies right there that he has killed over his old spread of lessers, you know, before they went to cacklers. And, I mean, God, heck yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah. That reminds me, you brought us a little gift.
I brought a gift, guys. What prompted my idea, one, I'm so appreciative of you guys letting me tag along. And it was a weird exchange on text because I literally, our season, as you know, ended in Montana in January, and I go into instant depression, like a tear in my eye. My wife hates it because she sees me moping around the house, and she's always just like, just get the fuck out and go hunting. Anyway,
that's a good woman, by the way.
She's I won the lottery on that woman. So anyway, I was like, texted Matt, hey man, is it worth going to Wyoming to freelance? I said, you know how I do it. I'm by myself. I'm gonna drive. I only got one truck. I'm gonna scout my bag off, and I'm gonna figure it out. And he's like, huh? Yes, it is. But oh, by the way, you want to go with us? So I was like, right the fuck on. I want to go. So I'm super appreciative of that. What's good for me on this trip is, one, listening to you call, Matt. You're far better than I am on a call. Listening to how you're honker calling, far better. And 2, you've relived a lot of the attention to detail questions and thoughts that I do by myself, in my truck by myself, when I'm always by myself. Like, where are we putting the hide? Do we put it to the left of that bush, to the right of that bush? Where do they see when they're coming in? How far out do we want to run the decoys from the hide? Do we want to run more? Like today, we ran all uprights and all sleepers, no feeders. And there was some thought behind that, why we did that. So bringing back all that, hey, I got a guy I can bounce questions off of. We drive down the road. I mean, the whole drive here, he drove with me. And it's like, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, have you guys thought about doing this with your decoy spread? Or what do you think about running all shells and no feeders? What's your thought on that? So I love that fact that I can bounce stuff off of you guys. It makes me smile. So anyway, as most of you know, Brad and Dave did a limited run on their last one of their Rester Lesser pose, the original one that Dave molded, and they sold that. And I looked at that and I go, God damn, Randy, you have a shitload of those in your, I call it my she shed. It's really a decoy shed. It's all for my wife, by the way. So I went in, and I'm like, and I'm a decoy whore, guys. I have so many decoys. I have way more decoys than any individual human has. Literally, if I went through and rattled off how many Daves I have, and replicas, and drop zones, and Tim Newbolds, it would boggle your mind. But I love decoys. I collect them. I love looking at them. I appreciate the artistic vision that guys had like Dave, how they made them all and did them all and painted them all and carved them, and it's just cool to me. So anyway, I went in my shed and I started counting some decoys, and like, hey, I know I got some of these. So I pulled out, I had 10 of these. The original Rester pose that Dave did, they have the softer carbon fiber tail on them, which back in the day I used to have to stack, and this is where the drill sergeant in me would come out when we'd pick up decoys. I'd be, all right, listen, dudes, those go against the wall of the cart, so they would sit like this against the wall of the cart so you didn't damage the tail. You couldn't just throw them in.
Yeah.
Or you come out and these would be all bent and stuff. But the detail that Dave went into when he built these, this is what right looks like right here. So I went in and I found 10 of these in my shed. And I'm like, I'm not going to sell these. I'll never sell these. But, I got some guys, I got some friends that appreciate this stuff. And I thought to myself, Brad and Dave's limited run was cool. But I thought, yours is cooler, Randy, because yours is 20 years old. I always write my initials in the year that I got the decoy on the bottom so I know. So this is from 2005, and I'm like, this is cool. And then even cooler, because I was going to give this one to Matt and Brady, is Matt's actually hunted over this decoy. Matt's actually killed birds over this decoy. And I was looking through, and she's in pretty good shape for a 20-year-old decoy.
Yes.
I wish the camera could show it a little even more detail. There's not much beat up on it because old OCD Randy double bags his decoys, and he's a dick about his decoys. So anyway, I brought this for you guys. I wanted to make sure you guys had one for your collection.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Thank you, by the way. I mean, it brings back a lot of memories because I remember when we were running the hardcores in the beginning, and then you switched to Dave's while I was hunting with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were very, very, very anal about it. And
It's pretty anal.
we used to call him Sergeant Southard.
Yep.
And it was because he would get out there and he would be like a drill sergeant. This is how you're going to do it. Listen. And he had 3 different color bags in his cart. He double bags all the decoys, okay?
Do you use the plastic bag that come in?
No, he would hand sew these cleaner supply bags.
My wife hand sewed.
Inside of the other cleaner supply bag, and then he had 3 different colors. 1 color for resters, 1 color for uprights, and 1 color for feeders. Do not fuck it up. And here's the deal. They got to go in head first so that your grimy little dick beaters don't touch this flocking. Because guess what? In the off season, who's got to reflock them? Me. Don't fucking touch the flocking.
Because I reflock them every year.
and then he'd be like, and here's the deal. On these ones, you got to hold with 2 hands, and you got to do this thing. You got to put them in and get them nice and tight. And guess what? All the decoys go corner to corner. I don't want to see anybody putting them in flat, straight like this. They go corner to corner because I need to wrap this. It's got to fit inside the cart. And he would get pissed off if you did it wrong, dude.
I love that.
Again, it wasn't necessarily the right way. It was his way. It's just the way he did it. And it's the way I learned was with that type of mentality. So when you always give me shit about, gosh, he's always paying attention to these details, and I appreciate it, but gosh, it just wears me out. Or he's always thinking about this. It takes him an hour to make a decision. It's like, man, it's just in my blood.
But if you look at my decoys,
It obviously works because this sucker is clean. You've reflocked it, obviously.
Yep.
A bunch, probably.
Every year I reflock my hunting spread.
Yeah, but still, the paint, I mean,
the paint's perfect.
Yeah.
and he would never let anybody load his cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just had to bring the decoys to him, and he would hand load the cart. So the feeders would go on the bottom, then he'd start mixing in some uprights. And this is an old hard one, right? So hard ones were more challenging to fit into the cart, right? Because they don't bend, they don't.
There's no softness to them.
And then these would go halfway up in the cart, and they would start to stack on the sides. And
I love it.
And then he'd stack around them, stack them on the sides. It was really, really cool. And it's cool to see that decoy because I remember this, and I remember talking about how longevity of this has got, I mean, they're going to fail. This is going to fail.
It's a failure point, yeah.
But it looks so
But
good
it's
that it's worth it.
It's what right looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when he came out with the ace, then they did away with that.
They did away with that.
They put it all as one piece.
Yep.
We got to have that sucker in the office, huh?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. That was fun. Those are fun times.
Those are fun times.
Yeah.
And then to go along with that, and my passion for decoys, is I was doing a head count again on other brands and stuff that I have, and I remembered I had a bunch of Tim Newbolds. Tim Newbold was a guy from Washington.
I'm going to pull this up.
Yeah, pull that off. That made a bunch of decoys. Unfortunately, Newbold passed away quite a while ago, so these are no longer made. You cannot find a Tim Newbold decoy. You have to know somebody like me that has an assload of them. And I was like, you know what? I know Matt and Brady don't have one of these, so I went through and I was like, I'll find a cool one that's not. I mean, again, these decoys, and I believe these ones were actually molded by Brad and Dave back in the day for Tim Newbold, but they weren't painted by Brad and Dave. So it's a little bit different paint scheme, as you'll see there on camera. A little bit different. He used to always flock the tail on them as long as the head too. And it's just a different paint scheme to a decoy. A lesser size, a little bit smaller than Dave's. But I was like, you guys got to have one. They're old cool decoys. They're just fantastic to look at.
I think these old Tim Newbolds are unbelievable. The attention to detail that he had through
The
this
feathering.
stuff.
The feathering.
So
yep.
how did he do the original carving?
That's a good question. I'm not sure who did it, if it was actually Tim himself. I don't know all the history behind it. So I'm unsure. I just love the decoy. When I got a hold of these, my buddy Kevin found them for me. Guys from Eastern Washington were selling them, and he's like, dude, there you go. And I pulled the trigger. The first one I bought was like 7 dozen of them. And I was like, got to have them. And then I kept finding more and more and more of them. And I just collected them.
Yeah. The detail on these is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you can see that Brad and Dave built these. I mean, they took the same system.
Yeah, the PVC pipe.
Yeah, and inputted it into their own, So for everybody who doesn't know, this gets put into the decoy early. This is for painting. This big hole in the back is am I correct?
Yeah, it's part of the mold too.
Yeah, it's part of the mold, and there's a staff that comes out of here, and they use that for painting. So they can paint this direction, and then they can paint this direction, and then they can paint this direction, so that when you turn the decoy, it changes colors just like a live bird. So that's how this is. That's what this hole is for. I've had people ask what that hole's for because people put the stake in there, and then it sits like that. But that's a paint. That's to hold the decoy while you're airbrushing it. This is really, really cool.
They're just
This
killer.
thing looks brand new.
I know, dude.
And I got it in 2012.
Right. And you've hunted over these a bunch.
And I've hunted over them. Again, they're just bagged properly. And the paint is just bomb-proof on that stuff.
Man, they're just like this looks like a new decoy.
Yeah.
You've reflocked this one, I assume?
No, I never had to reflock these.
Really?
That's how well they were done.
Really?
Yeah.
Tails, head, any of it?
Yeah, I've never reflocked those.
Wow. That literally looks like a new decoy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's heavy.
They're heavy. Hard plastic, I'm sure it's along the lines of the original Dave plastic, the material is.
Yeah.
Probably part of the reason why the paint lasts so long. I mean, anything that's flexible as it bends is going to loosen paint.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just they're bomb proof, and they look so cool out in the field.
Yeah.
Just so cool.
Well, these are awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
All
you.
the way, thank you.
They will they'll live in the office, and we'll tell a lot of people about them. You mentioned Avery when you talked about them.
Oh, yeah, back in the day, this Avery, before they were sold, bought the molds for that decoy, and I forget what they
Was
called
Tim out of the decoy business at
Tim
that
was
point?
out of the decoy business. He already passed away, I believe.
Okay.
And Avery had bought the molds. I'm not sure who they bought them from. I'd be lying if I knew. They bought the mold and then mass produced.
Yeah.
Mass produced them. I forget. I think they called them Tim Newbolds. I believe they did. But they weren't the same. Obviously, the paint, they were mass produced decoy.
Yeah.
And that's where they went. I don't even know if they're made anymore. I don't know because Avery's owned. I forget who owns Avery now.
Banded?
I don't think that. I don't know if Bandit owns them or not. I don't think so. But
I know when I go to look at like Avery dog vests, it's on the Banded website. They pull up on
must
there.
be.
I don't know.
And I don't know if
I
they're
don't know,
producing that Newbold series of decoys anymore or not.
I haven't seen it around.
I haven't either.
That's a really unique decoy, especially an original.
Yeah.
When would that have been made?
I'm guessing 2007, 2008, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
In that time frame. So
That's great.
maybe a little bit sooner.
It's the West Coast guys making this stuff.
The
You
West
notice
Coast
that?
guys, and I hate saying it, a lot of them are pioneers. I mean, you look at Dave. You look at the flocking that was Perry Northhouse. I don't know if you guys knew that. You look at the lay down blind was Ron Latchow. He was in Oregon, from Oregon when he did that. You look at drop zone decoys with Paul Sullivan, how he textured decoys. That came from there. They just kind of pioneered a little bit. Not everything. Of course, Tim Grounds, with the calling side. Sean Mann from the East Coast, legends. But
Those West Coast guys, they took they were just very keen on detail, and I think they just wanted it just a little bit more than other places of the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a competition thing in areas, if it had to do with status, or if they really truly just wanted to do it better. I know Brad and Dave's story is they just wanted to do it better. But there was a time there from 98 to 2005 where there was a lot of innovation in waterfowl.
yeah,
Waterfowl decoys, waterfowl hunting styles, waterfowl blinds. The way I think about Kevin McMahon and Decoy Dancer and how that whole thing happened. I mean, that was all very innovative, very new.
and one that that we don't think of. It's not made anymore, but Dave did. It's called whoopgrass. You watch the old video. He took raffia, dyed it, put it on a black tube that you use for irrigation, zip tied it, and that's. If you look at some of his old videos, I think it's stripping down video. That was Dave using raffia grass. Now everybody uses raffia grass, but that was a long time ago. A long time ago. So things like that, that detail, that thought, better mousetrap idea,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It was fascinating to me because with Randy as my mentor, I generally tended to go the final approach back in those days, the final approach way, which was, the West Coast way. I know Foils was a part of it, but there wasn't many Midwest guys that were like FA guys. It was Midwest guys were Avery guys, West Coast guys were FA guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Foils would have been a bit of an outlier.
He was a bit of an outlier. And where's Vaca from? He was from the East Coast?
No, I think Vaca
he
was
from?
from Kansas country.
Kansas
Central.
country.
I think he was Midwest guy.
But otherwise, the majority of it was all
Yeah.
West Coast. And
Yeah.
And you know, the attention to detail that these guys had and the stories that I heard from him, and then I talked to these guys on the phone. They gave a shit about goose hunting. That's what they cared about. It's all they cared about.
Well,
Same.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. And look at us now. Now we're Western U.S. people.
Yeah, and how I brought that back to the Midwest is I was extremely lucky. I went and hunted with Bill Saunders, early 2000s.
Like buddy hunted, or you
No,
like booked a trip with him?
We did a trip, and on that trip I got to meet Kevin McMahon, and I watched how Bill hides like a sniper with a pit, using stuffers at the time. Kevin dialed in on that. Then I actually got to hunt with Dave and Brad, and I then hunted with Brad multiple times, and I got to see that West Coast thought process of edge hunting, getting the decoys out there, let the decoys do their job. How do you call birds, you know, on the corners, and how you know, backwinging birds over decoys, doing it like that style of hunting. That's where I got lucky. I was very fortunate to get to experience that. And, you know, it just taught me hiding, decoys, and calling, you know, the top three things, in my opinion. What you got to look like a goose, sound like a goose, and hide from a goose, you know. And I was just lucky to see that. Lucky to see Dave's decoys in person, hunt over them for the first time. I was like, okay, I'm going down this rabbit hole.
This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I remember you and I sitting there in a field one day, probably in the rain, and, you know, maybe needing a bird or two. And I asked you, if you could go on one hunt, what would it be? And you said, hands down, without a doubt, cacklers with Brad and Dave.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would do. And I took that to heart. We talked a lot about it. And then I got to meet those guys. That was early on. That was 20 years. That was a long time ago when I met those guys. And then that stuck with me all the way through, you know, my move to Idaho and everything. I'm like, man, Randy says that, like, if you're going to go hunting, that's the place you should go try. But you got to do it with these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the style of hunting that he loved. And then in 2013, when I moved to Bozeman and I got that job at Seacat Creative, and Sitka Gear had just launched the waterfowl line, they needed photos, and I was the photo guy for waterfowl, so I got to basically pick a trip. David Brinker, he says to me, would you like to do a trip and write an article for Sitka Insight, which was their catalog at the time? It'll be the first waterfowl article that we do as a part of Sitka Gear. I'm like, yeah, where do you want me to go somewhere? Like, do you have some people? He's like, no, I want you to do what you want to do. And I'm like,
10-4.
Boy, do I have an idea.
Let me go ahead and dial up Brad. I'm like, Brad, listen, I got this really cool opportunity. You know Matt Brimmer. I know you know him. He's your buddy. He lives down there. He's part of Sitka Gear. I'm now taking photos for them. And I know what it looks like, and I know it's really expensive and all this stuff. You know, Brad was very hesitant on the camouflage at the beginning, and I'm just like, just give it a try.
Yep.
Because Randy told me, and I told him this on the phone, I'm like, Randy told me if I had to pick one trip to go on ever in my life, it was to come hunt cacklers with you. Well, guess what? I finally got my chance to do anything I want, and I'm coming out there, and you're wearing Sitka Gear. He's like, all right, man, we'll do it. Yep, let's do it. And I'm like, and I want to do it the right way, by the way. I want to see you do it your way. Like, do not change anything for the camera or anything. Like, I want to see it your way. He's like, okay, let's do it. And we went out there, and we ended up shooting 3 callers. He shot 2. Here's something. Very first, and it's all in this article that I wrote, and I still have a copy. I'll let you guys. I should show that to you sometime. Anyways, I called it Wrapped in Yellow because it was the era of the yellow collar when this all happened. This was in 2013. And we go down there, and I'm fired up, right? And he's like, we got to clean decoys and do this thing. So we bring his decoy cart to the car wash. And I'm like, bring it to the car wash. He's like, oh, yep. Just put it no soap and just high pressure spray these things off. We need to clean them up because we were in the mud the other day.
Yeah.
And
And
people
they're always
walking.
in the mud.
Yep. And so we do this, and I'm fired up. We go scouting. He's like, yeah, that's the field we're going to hunt. And there's, cackler feeds are big and dark. I'm like, wow, this is going to be So sweet. We get there, we do the thing, and here come the birds. And the very first flock is a huge grind of cacklers, like 3,000. And they're just spinning and spinning and spinning. And they start, they start landing. And now all of a sudden they're all on the ground. And I told them, do it your way, right? So they're all on the ground. And all of a sudden, boom, there's a yellow collar, and he's on the front edge. And I got this picture, and it's a very iconic photo for me. And I have it really big in my house. And there's 11 DSD decoys in the photo, and there's probably 400 cacklers in the photo, and there's one Dave Smith honker, the 2-piece Z-neck in the photo, right in the dead center, and the collar is standing right next to it. So it's all this stuff, and right in the very front is this collar and a DSD honker, or a DSD giant. It was called the honker in the beginning, right? Yeah.
I think it was originally called the honker.
Yeah.
It was before the honker as we know it now came out.
And so big ass Western decoy, you put two of them out in his spread, stand side by side. And I'm like, man, what are we going to do? I'm like, and Brad leans over to me. He's like, here's the deal. I'm going to kill that bird. I'm like, okay. He's like, I don't want anybody else to shoot it, because we had Brimmer with us. He's like, I got to do this because like the limit on cacklers was 2 or 3.
Probably, yeah.
And he's like, I can't risk shooting into this flock. Like, I got a way I'm going to do this. And the birds are just feeding around. And we're just whispering back and forth on layup lines. He pulled the most sniper move that I've ever seen. And later I find out, he's like, oh yeah, I was watching that bird, and I was taking my, moving the grass a little bit, waiting for that bird to be the bird that saw the movement, that saw something wrong. And that's when I'd open the door, and he was the first one up. He's like, I waited for him to do that. But anyways, he's the first one up. And he gets about, 6-8 feet off the ground. It was like a parting of the seas. Then all the rest of them get up, and it was just like him in the middle of this V, and he sniped that thing out of the air. And the very first cackler that I ever saw get shot, Brad shot it, who is truly the collar legend. Shoots a collar right in front of me, and I got a badass photo of it. And then I find out that it's not just happenstance. It was like a thing. Like he had planned the whole thing. My mind was so blown that I was just like, this whole trip has been the coolest thing I've ever done, to your point. 15 years, 10 years earlier,
That's cool.
The guy
That's
knows
really
some
cool.
shit. Yep.
I love that.
Anyways, I got off on a little bit of a diatribe there. But innovation has slowed down. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Why? You agree?
Man.
I 100% agree. We've had a lot of late night conversations in the truck about this. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear why you think it is.
Man, I guess I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but
timing-wise, in my opinion, and I'll just say this, then we can chat. I think it's been in the last 7 to 8 years.
What was the last big innovation in waterfowl? Like a big one.
Well, Sitka Gear coming out with technical clothing for waterfowl was a big one. That started the whole tech gear.
I agree.
Tech clothing trend, and now everybody's doing it, and everybody's making really cool stuff, right?
I think that's the last one in my mind when I think about it from a goose hunter's perspective.
Well, the big change that we saw was the honker,
one.
the DSD honker.
Yep.
That was a change, right? Because it wasn't lessers or giants.
There was a middle of the road.
There was
bird.
like
middle of the road.
actual built the size of an actual Western goose.
Yep.
Looks the same size.
And I think that was in 17.
I think somewhere right in there.
'Cause
So
I
it's
have
been
some-
6 years.
I have some 17 and 2018 birds in my spread. So
And 14, 15 was Sitka waterfowl, right?
2012 is when they launched it. 2013 is when they
Pushed it out.
gave it to the world. And
So
said,
yeah,
Here
so
you
that's
go.
been so I would say
I have another one.
okay, what's that?
Ammunition.
Ammunition.
I'm actually going back a little bit on my things aren't innovating because they're just happening slower than they were back then. But maybe it's because
ammunition
it was so
is on a fast track.
Yeah,
ammunition.
ammunition is definitely game changer for me personally, for sure.
Me too, no
Yes.
doubt.
You guys see me the last 2 days. I'm shooting a 20 gauge
Mhm.
almost all the time. And I wouldn't have thought of doing that 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Not in a million years. I mean, I did with my kids as they were 12 years old.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't shoot a 12 gauge.
Right.
But
you were always a 12 man.
I was always a 12 gauge guy.
Yeah.
Until the technology and today's ammo changed me.
Yeah.
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 So I guess I'm going back on a little bit of what I said on there's been a lack of innovation, because there hasn't. It's just it's not happening as fast, and there's not as much of it
I think
as it was back then. So maybe it was a foundationary thing. They just needed to innovate quickly and fast because it was new.
I think
Full body decoy and all that.
maybe something, and we've talked about this. If we take the whole waterfowl industry as a whole and look at all the products, right? I do wholeheartedly believe that innovation has slowed. The other thing that I've seen is an overarching cheapening of products.
Yes.
And I don't like that, because I feel like I was listening to a waterfowl podcast one time, hunting podcast, and they were talking about these different subsets of hunters, big game hunters and waterfowl hunters. And there was a stat, and they said that waterfowl hunters compared to big game hunters, that's western big game and whitetail and everything, they spend 40% more money, or they spend 40% more money, they're 30% younger, and they spend 20% more time in the field on average. Okay? Waterfowl hunters spend 40% more money, they're 30% younger, and they spend 20% more time in the field.
Versus
big game hunters.
a big game hunter, like a whitetail deer hunter. Or
It said all big game is what it said. Like, they just took whitetail and everything. So anyway, that was just their stat. I have no idea how they came up with that.
Yeah.
However, it resonates a bit, because let's just take the gear alone. Waterfowl hunting is such a gear-intensive sport.
Correct.
I don't care if you're duck hunting, which is less gear than field goose hunting, but there's not many hunting activities where you literally need a 20-foot trailer to get your shit from point A to point B to perform the activity. What I feel like I've seen is a general cheapening of the gear. It's all becoming – all is not the right word. It's largely becoming throwaway gear, meaning
But
you buy the –
our society is that way.
I agree.
In general.
I agree. And, and people are going to see this. Flying V, we're coming out with a few very select products that are not by any means inexpensive, but we think that cool shit ain't cheap and cheap shit ain't cool, right?
And the stuff you guys are coming out with, a guy can pass that down to his kid.
Bingo.
no doubt.
And it's
Bingo.
it's a generational item that, hey, my dad used this 30 years ago.
Yes.
Or somebody goes on a hunt with his buddy from 20 years ago, and he's like, I brought you a gift.
Yeah.
And you can hold it and look at it and be like, God damn it, that is bad to the bone, right?
And that's the craftsmanship, American made, the quality.
It's the whole thought process. It's the fact that when Dave and Tim and all these guys build these, we're talking about the decoys, they didn't build them thinking, I want to build a decoy that can compete on price in a retail location.
No.
They said, I want to make a decoy that looks exactly like a fucking goose.
Pure and simple.
And in Tim's eye, he looked at this tens of thousands of times, no doubt, and went, that looks like a goose. Dave did the same thing with this one, Dave and Brad, and went, that looks just like a Tav.
A Tav was their goal, yep.
That looks just like a Tav. That's the one. We aced it, right?
Correct.
And so I just think that waterfowl hunters have gotten used to being, I would say, burned and taken advantage of by gear.
Yes, very
We've
much
talked
so.
about this.
Yes.
And I am 100% convinced, and we see it in clothing, people are willing to spend more money if they truly believe it will work for them, and then it has to actually work.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish the waterfowl industry as a whole would go back to innovation and building cool stuff that's actually high quality.
And doing it for the right reasons.
And doing it for the right reasons. Because here's the deal. If you go into business, obviously you got to make money.
Correct.
However, if you if the product performs at the highest possible level that product can perform, the money will come.
Because it's going to sell itself.
The money comes,
Yes.
of course. And so
I think waterfowl hunters are craving that right now.
I do too.
They're sick of things breaking. I
Yeah.
know we are. But I think a lot of people out there are sick of things breaking.
Yeah.
And they're sick of plastic shit. Like things that are plastic break, especially here in the North Country. Right? The cold is hard. Today we hunted, it was -3. That's cold.
Things break.
Everything's things are going to break in the
100%.
cold. And it'd be great if they didn't, but they will. But if we could lessen that curve a little bit, that would be really nice.
Mhm.
And it didn't seem like, I think about my old, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I think
good.
about my old final approach layout blinds that I had forever.
Guess what I have? One at home.
Do you have an old Xlander?
I have an old Pro Guide.
You got an old Pro Guide. I probably hunted out of that Pro Guide
Probably.
before. You want to
Yeah.
sell it?
It has that big sign on it that says "Not for sale."
Not
You don't
for-
even use it.
But that's a perfect example.
The
I do
correct-
use it. I do use it because I got an old Tyvek snow cover for it.
Oh,
It's
really?
the only snow cover I found that works.
that looks like snow. It's
That
Tyvek.
looks like the
Yeah.
It's
the
Tyvek.
only one.
It's not durable, the cover, but
No.
damn, does it work. But anyway, I could take that blind. I wish I had it here, and you would feel the material. And when Latchow was having that done, it's bomb-proof.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember hunting with Brad, and you'd be hunting out of a blind that's 20 years old that's been through the ringer. And he's like, I'll never get rid of these.
Right.
Never get rid of these.
I remember that when I hunted with him. He was hunting up pro guides,
Yep.
which as soon as they came out, that's all they wanted to hunt out of because it gave them enough room to carry their stuff inside. They could hide it, and it was big enough to where they could move around and look for all the special birds they wanted to look for.
Mhm.
But even my old Xlander, I ran that Xlander for a long time, and my dumbass, this is the only reason it failed is because of me, and it's because I left my cart and my blind in a barn for the summer. And what happened is where I left it, and I put the blind on top of the cart. The doors were open because there wasn't even a door. It was just an old barn. The sun would beat on it for like 4 to 5 hours a day. And I didn't even think about it. It's just like out.
Oh, it just sun rotted.
And it sun rotted the stitching, which
Yep.
then ruined the stubble straps, which then ruined the blind.
Yeah.
And it faded them out a little bit.
If
they
that hadn't
turned
happened,
red.
you'd have that blind today.
I still would.
Yeah. Especially the old neck ear ones.
Yes.
Those are so badass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really.
You know,
It's
when
just
we
not
started
built the
talking
same.
about products, something a lot of people don't know, you probably don't know this. Matt and I one winter went on this deep dive on layout blinds where like everything we're using is breaking. It's part of why we went to A-frames. Now, I would
It is
never
part of
argue
why.
I would never argue that an A-frame you can hide better because you can't. But it was part of the reasons we went through every single brand of layout blinds. They were all breaking. And man, we hauled them in a trailer. We'd take them down. We're like trying to take care
Doing
of our
everything
stuff.
right. Yep.
And we're like, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna build a layout blind. It's gonna have an aluminum frame. We're gonna make it in our shop. We're gonna build some prototypes, and we're gonna go to the best canvas shop we know. Maybe go to Montana Canvas in Bozeman or somebody. We're gonna have them make it. I don't care if this son of a bitch weighs 150 pounds. Everybody's making layout blinds, and they're being advertised with these straps. You can walk in a mile on public land, and I'm like, maybe somebody does that, but I've done the walk-in on public land thing. Nobody uses layout. They're all sitting in the marsh, at least my hunting experience.
Or gillies.
And then all the layout blind people are driving into the field or a cart. So I'm like, we don't care about weight. We don't care about anything. To the point, I even went and bought a TIG welder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm going to weld these some bit. Like, we're doing this. And, man,
I had the design.
we drew these things, and we whiteboarded it 30 ways to Sunday, and we finally got to the point, and looking back, this was naive on our part, is we thought, this is going to be a $750 layout blind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's too much.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are going to buy it. I do think it would have worked. It still could work.
It still could work.
But one idea that we had that was really cool, maybe I shouldn't say it. I'll say it.
do you want
Doesn't
me
matter.
to say it?
No. Is we would always hunt, say, 6 layout blinds in a row, right? So you brush them, but you still have this in the layout blinds, right? Looks like moguls. We wanted to, on the sides where the doors would open, have some kind of rings or connectors, and then you'd have like a canvas that would go in between each blind, and so it would level out the blinds.
Mhm.
So instead of this, we were going to just have this big ass, it looked like one giant layout blind that 6 guys could hide in, although they were all individual.
Yeah.
So you could hunt them together.
Yep.
You could hunt them with 6 or 10 or 50, however many you wanted to put out. But that was the point when that was the beginning of our frustrations of, man, all these products, like I like the concept of them. The marketing, I understand why this was built this way. However, in the field, it just doesn't hold up.
Yep.
Not that it didn't even do its job. Some of them we really enjoyed when they were new, and like they really did work well. Whether it was the door design or how it worked. I mean, I argue to Matt all the time, my favorite layout blind I've ever owned in my life, to this day, forever will be, was a Power Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I love the Power Hunter. It was basically just a nylon bag with a little hood over you.
Yeah.
And I know that hood stood up a little bit and yada, yada. But that bag, you could get so low.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was no frame, no rigidity.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Other than the little U-shaped hood, there was no rigidity to that thing. You could hide, however fat you are is how tall the blind is. You
Yeah.
know? And I loved them.
Yeah.
I thought they were awesome
Well,
blinds.
Like flags. Flags is a great example. I always laugh because everyone you hunt with that has the commercially made flags bitches and moans about them.
They all suck.
They all suck and they all break.
Mm-hmm.
You guys saw what I was using today.
Yeah.
Homemade.
You used to, you used that when we used to hunt together.
Yeah.
It fit in the layout blind. You never had to worry about whether it was in or out. And you just run it.
Run
Flag
it.
'em. It's just to catch their attention anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And you put it away. It's easy to hide. And oh, by the way, it's a big dowel rod. If I step on it and break it, let's go to the hardware store.
Yeah.
To my point, I'm confident if somebody made a flag where you're like, holy shit, that thing's going to work, but it's $250, we're going to own a couple. People would buy one. I guarantee you we've spent over $1,000 on flags. Even though we've gotten some given to us for marketing reasons, we've still spent a lot of money on flags. And every year when we do the spring trailer clean out, it's like, all right, anything that's broken, let's run through it. We'll replace it. Guess what we never have in the spring that's still good for the next season?
A flag.
A flag. Not one. That flag holder in our trailer, there's been times we've had 6 or 7 in there at a time. And, like, whoever's doing the blind for us puts flags out and does everything. There's been so many times we're over there, and I'm like, dark, it's cold. Pull a flag out. I'm like, I don't know if this one's broken. Put it together. It's 4 in the morning. Yeah, that one's broken. Trash. I don't even know why I went back in the flag holder. Next, you whittle them down. You got one that can kind of work if you don't flag.
Because you piecemealed other ones.
Yeah, if you don't do it, if you hold it just right and lean a little bit to the left, and it might work. But
I still have one old Avery flag
Okay.
that we used to use with the original shadowgrass on the back of it. And I keep it in my truck underneath the back seat, and I literally don't ever take it out. The only time I take it out is when I buy a new truck to take it from that truck to that truck because I almost don't even want to use it.
Because you don't want to break it.
But I need to have it just in case we need it. If it's like the make or break and we forgot a flag or whatever, or they're all broken, I got it. But I definitely don't want to put it in that trailer because it seems like that trailer just eats flags like Skittles.
yeah, I think the flags are self-cannibalizing.
Yeah.
They eat themselves.
Those old Randy Bart's, the original T flags, those were cool.
They were pretty good durability-wise.
Yep, durability-wise. And then he made the telescoping one.
Yep.
That was like 20 feet long.
Which I'm into that, by the
That
way.
one.
I have a couple of those old poles. in
That
my
held
house.
up
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
He didn't care about profit margin.
No.
He cared about utility.
Killing geese.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really
I still have one of those original metal telescoping ones.
Yeah.
The only bad thing is if it is extended and you step on it and bend it,
it's
You're done.
you're done.
Yep.
You're done.
Yep. Yeah, products.
Well, I am very, very pumped that we get to hunt again tomorrow.
Can't wait. I can't wait. And Matt and I were doing our critical thinking, what can we do better tomorrow?
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, we should throw some feeders in with this.
Yeah, change it up
Change
a
it
little
up
bit.
a little
change
bit.
the shape of the spread too, even though it's going to be the same wind. We're
Warmer.
gonna change the shape.
Warmer.
It's going to be a little warmer. Put some feeders
What is it going to
up.
be tomorrow?
I think
Above
it's,
0?
Anything north of 0 is good.
That'd be nice.
Maybe. The low's supposed to be -2 tonight, but it's supposed to get to, like, I thought like 20 tomorrow or something.
15 or 20.
tomorrow,
Oh, okay.
15
But that 20 is not till 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be the same thing we had today.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my guess too.
We won't need to run into town to go to Maverick today, so we'll be 45 minutes earlier. I think we could leave at the same time. Keep in mind, part of the reason why we're a little bit behind today is because we went into town,
Yeah.
did all that, got fuel and everything, and then came back.
Yeah.
I think if we left at the same time, we would have been in the blind, set up, everything done.
And getting those layups,
Buy
those
that
early
first.
birds,
Yeah.
Bingo.
early layups. Yeah, I
think we'd
wait.
leave at the exact same time.
Can't wait.
One thing I want to bring up here before we go real quick, and I'd like people to know this because it's something I think about a lot. So Randy taught me how to call, right? And I may have told you this, maybe I haven't. We used to do these training seminars back and forth where we'd go out to the local refuge and we would do a training seminar. Can you put your feet down? They're in front of the camera. They don't want to look at the bottom of your feet.
Yes.
And so we would do these training seminars, and just him and I, not seminars. We did training seminars, but just him and I. We'd go back and forth, and we'd practice new notes and practice new sequences, and it was crazy because we'd hang out together and we'd blow our calls and we'd talk about stuff and different riffs and what would work and what wouldn't, and there's new sounds and this and that, and then we wouldn't see each other for a couple of days. Then we'd do it over the phone, and we'd be like calling over the phone. What do you think about this? Hey, I think I learned this, or whatever. We'd be going back and forth. Well, then I started competition calling, and I'm like, okay, I need to learn this. That's where Bill really came in, where it was just like, okay, now I got to be on the phone with Bill 3 times a week for at least 1 hour, and I'm going to blow my routine into the call, and he's going to listen to it, and we're going to work on it together for an hour a day for 3 days a week. Is what I did with Bill. And I got to a point where he helped me put together a very clean, at the time, very clean routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I was of the mindset of I'm going to memorize shit, right? Like that's the way that I can do it. You know this about me. I would rather memorize it than have to remember it or just let her slide. I'm just going to memorize every single note. And so I did. And I start going to these competitions and are getting, I'm getting better and I'm at least podium, and I'm not winning much, but I'm there and I'm in it and I'm learning and I'm hearing what's winning. And this is back in the, Hunter Grounds and Wade Walling and Field Hudnall and, Big Sean. And I mean, guys that were like truly good, like the best of the best, like still to this day.
Yeah.
But I wanted to win, and the Wisconsin State Goose was coming up, and I'm feeling really good, and he's helping me. We're going out, we're meeting up, we're doing the routines, and he's like, man, I think it sounds really good. What if you do a check note here instead of here? What if you switch this to a moan instead of a clutch? It might just smooth out a little bit, right? We were doing that, like every day leading in. And then like a week before the competition, Randy says, I think I'm going to enter it too. And I'm like, you should enter it. Like, you're good. He's like, okay, well, I know I'm probably not going to do very good, but listen to this routine that I put together. I'm like, okay. So I listened to it, and he does this crazy fucking sequence note that I'm just like, man, it is high risk to do that. You already know Wisconsin State Goose. The judges are very simple. It's power and control.
Clean
There's
power.
no trickery. Because this is right in the time when we're like at a crossroads where people are starting to do pretty good with trickery, but the power is still winning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so my routine was all based on control and power, not speed and tricks. And the teacher all of a sudden is throwing in tricks when I was just told for the last 6 months to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Like, just stick with control, stick with power, and make sure it's clean.
I love that.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I think it sounds really good. He's like, you think I should do the old T-Rex? I'm like, yeah, I think you should do the old T-Rex. and that's the note that he was doing. And so we go down together. We get in the truck. We're headed down to the Wisconsin State Goose. Our buddy Aaron Eberly is there. He's the reigning champion. I had gotten second place the year prior to him. And Randy and I were showing up, and we were, I won't call it the favorites, but we were like, we were certainly on the board and people to watch. Well, people showed up to this event.
Yeah.
Like it's an event.
Yeah.
And we go round one. How'd you do? It sounded really good. It felt really clean. I remember you're like, it felt clean. I'm like, mine felt clean too. Round two comes along. We both make the cut. Round two comes around. Felt really clean, dude. Like, really clean. I'm feeling really good. Same with him. And I remember you had thought that maybe you slipped a note, like slid a note. Not slipped it, but slid a note. And you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be in the third round. I'm like, I didn't hear it. So you may be the only one that know and may be clear. We both make the cut. Third round comes around. There's 5 callers. Aaron's in there. Stanky's in there. You and I and somebody else.
Yep.
5 really good callers.
Yeah.
And we go through it, and I think I was blowing. You had to blow first in the third round. You blew first, and then I was somewhere in the middle. And you know how it all works. You know that you don't get any scores. You have no idea where you're at. Then you all go up on stage and line up. And 5th place goes to, 4th place goes to, 3rd place goes to, and it's Randy and I. And I'm like, I'm pretty pumped. And you're looking at me, and, you're very humble, but you're looking at me like, bro, you got it. I mean, the power and control. We've talked about this. We're standing on stage. He's like, I know you got it. The power and control. It's the Wisconsin thing. And 1st place goes to Randy Southard of Black Creek, Wisconsin.
I shit my pants. I was like, no. Well, it gave it away, too, is I think it was Mike Williams going back. He was in the crowd, and he looked at me, and he goes, he was pointing at me, and I'm like, no way, dude. There's no way I won this contest with these guys. I mean, there's just no way. And they called my name. I'm like, you got to be shitting me, man.
Yeah.
Really?
That's awesome.
We celebrated, man. It was so cool because you had worked with me so hard on my routine that it inspired you to
get better,
build a routine and get better. And we started learning notes together. And then you just threw together a 90-second riff.
But to Matt's credit, he went on to whoop everybody's ass at Game Fair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Which is in my mind, a harder contest because then you got even bigger guys in there. It's not just a state
It's not
thing.
a state goose,
It's a region where whoever wants to come and blow.
Yeah.
So that one's harder.
Yeah, that was open. But still, I thought that was cool because I think my passion for it drove you and inspired
Push
you
me.
to get better.
Of
And I
course.
was getting better and elevating, so you were, and I was building routine, so you did. And then I don't know how long you knew you were going to blow in that competition, but it was like days before it when you're like, I'm going to try, and I'm going to do the old T-Rex. I'm like, really?
Don't do it.
Hey, it's a hard note to do.
It's really hard to control, hard.
Like if your heart's racing, you can't control it.
Especially when you know it's coming up in your routine. You're like, okay, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And you did 2 of them back to back. That was the thing, is it was 2 back to back. So it was, I can't believe you pulled it off. And it's fucking awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But and it relates to this trip for me. You're reliving for me to make myself better as a goose hunter now, because you're pushing me. Because you look at things as critical as I do, and I love the criticalness. I love watching Brady's dog work because I'm a dog guy, and I love, like, Brady walked away from the spread today for phone call, and I just looked at Led, and I said, Kennel. He's like, on it, Dad. He didn't know. He knew Dad wasn't there, but he's like, on it.
Yep.
And he was perfect when that wad of 70 landed out there. I looked over, and I'm like, he's not going to break. Right on. So it makes me want to be a better dog guy. It makes me want to be a better hunter.
Yeah.
Pay attention to more details. Push those decoys more. Hide better, call better. It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Circling back, man, it's a beautiful thing about this. You're never going to figure it out.
No.
No, and I
None
love
of us
that.
are, right?
And I love that.
And
I
so
love
it's so fun that there's always some other hill to climb.
Yeah. Always get better.
You can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want, and it goes forever.
Yeah. And because we're not hunting antlered game where you can go for size or inches or whatever, what I love about waterfowl hunting is it's about the techniques and the pursuit. And people tend to fall in these different boxes, right? Like, usually the guys that are the world-class callers, like, that's kind of their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the dog guys, and then there's this, and then there's that. But, like, it's such a technique-based endeavor that it's so fun. Whether you're field goose hunting or you're hunting ducks or sea ducks or small water ducks in Montana or anything in between, right? And I'm just fascinated by it, and it's one thing that I love about this. And even if there's a hunter that hunts a totally different style somewhere else in the country that I may or may not ever do, luckily I've been fortunate enough to experience a bunch of different things, but I still love talking to those guys because there's takeaways, right?
There's always takeaways.
There's takeaways.
Every time.
And it's so fascinating. You know, years ago, Matt and I got to hunt with a guy named Tony Smith in Utah. He's a diver hunting expert. He used to own Bonneville layout boats. He's a layout boat diver hunter.
Yep.
And we're hunting with him, and we're talking, and he builds all his own decoys. It's crazy. The guy has a full canvas back spread, handmade. I mean, he's into it,
Oh,
Yeah.
he's
right?
all the
He's
way
all
in.
the way into it. But even just how he's setting up his decoys and the thought process and where the layout boat goes, which is the hide, but like not really a hide. You're floating, and how close he's putting decoys to it, and the long line and pulling them up the line. And the same thing we talk about setting a decoy spread in a field for honkers. We're going to run this line out. We're going to be able to suck them up the line with the call. We're going to kill them here. He's doing the same thing diver hunting. And it just gets your head going of I wonder if that would work with geese, or I wonder if this would work in a mallard spread, or I wonder how this would work. And then you just start trying shit.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing I love at a very high level about waterfowl. It's not the thing I love the most, but it's a thing that I love at a very high level about waterfowl hunting.
Yes.
And I think it's great. I also think that we should, after this trip, it's been really fun hunting with you. I think that we should make it not another 15-year gap that you hunt.
Yes, exactly.
Just call me, because I'll make it happen really
Well,
quick.
I'll make it happen as well.
No, I know.
I'm teasing.
Life gets in the way, man.
Oh,
and we
yeah.
get busy and we do things. And
Well, and it was amazing that, you're 3.5 hours away from us, and it still feels like a lifetime away, right? But
Yeah.
it's not.
but it's not.
And you just have to, both us and you have to get out of the echo chamber and just like go do something unique like this. Like this is really fun. I do want to go up there with you, although we'll have to hunt out of layout blinds, which will be great.
Which is great.
Or gilly
Or
blinds.
I'll
Or we'll go lay on the ground.
I'd love to get you guys up to my part of Montana and see some big country.
Yeah. Big,
You know,
big country.
We've been fortunate enough to hunt all over Montana. Where you live is one area that I used to drive through there for work all the time. I've seen the geese. Spent a lot of time in your area. I have never hunted up there.
No.
Ever. So
Yeah.
it'd be fun to do.
We got to do it.
We'll make it happen.
Well, in 15 years, check my schedule. I'll be open.
Yeah.
Or next year.
Or
Or next
next
year.
We'll make it happen
Yeah.
next year.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Randy.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for letting me be
having
here.
you here.
I love it.
I know
Love
it means a lot to Matt. I'm sure it means a lot to you. But
Big time.
again, I've been excited about it once I knew you were coming, because again, I've just heard so much lore and mythology surrounding you, and so it's been fun to hunt together for sure. I look
Love
forward to hunting more. You're actually one of the only guys that I hunt with, or I've hunted with in a while, who can truly like nerd out with me about dog stuff.
Yeah, I love
You know, you're a retriever guy, but you're also a canine handler. You understand working dogs at a high level, and so most people are like, yeah, the dog's cool,
it. No, I love.
and that's it.
Yeah, no.
So I kind of like live in this little echo chamber of like quietness.
Well, like
about
you
the
and I
dogs.
went down the rabbit hole of Chesapeakes the other
Mhm.
day, talking about that and the guys training and the breeding of them and why you did what you did with that process, and
Yeah.
I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, we're making chassis great again around here at Flying V.
Hell yeah, we are. All right, guys.
Cool.
Let's go eat
Sounds
some
good.
dinner.
Let's go eat some dinner.
Some Angus cattle.
Some beef.
We've eaten good this week, but we have not yet partaken in straight cattle, and I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. We'll get changed. We'll make it happen. We'll have a great day again tomorrow.
Thanks.
Good time. Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.